as those of you who watch my content before might know, I wouldn't so much say I like 2D platformers so much as I require them for basic nourishment and prefer them injected directly into my bloodstream. But the genre is crowded. I don't envy an indie dev making a 2D platformer in 2023 because you need to have great mechanics and stellar level design to stand out. Velocity Noodle is about halfway there. Your job is to deliver fast food noodles through several dozen levels in the most dangerous conditions imaginable, perhaps taking inspiration from the name DoorDash a bit too literally. All the genre staples are here: wall jumps, dashes, slides, lasers, and saw blades. So many saw blades, all glossed up with a cyberpunk pixel art sheen. There are also optional sets of chopsticks to find in each level and completion times to hit if you want to get gold, but if none of this matters to you, it's easy to ignore them entirely and just play to beat the levels. Visually, Velocity Noodle looks like somebody told ChatGPT to make a pixel art cyberpunk game. It was nice at first, but most levels look so nearly identical that its constantly reused art assets and repetitive color palette didn't do it any favors. It generally runs smoothly on Switch, but some areas had baffling frame rate drops that were surprising for a pixel art game. The music backing each level is fitting, but pretty generic electronic synth that's totally fine, but not gonna stick with anybody. Settings on Switch are pretty minimal. You get an accessibility option to lock the camera on our noodle dashing heroine that should help prevent motion sickness for some, but otherwise it's fairly bare, with a nice option to show a speedrun timer for those looking to set records. I really wish the controls could be rebound though. There are a couple options for most moves and they're easy enough to get used to, but having the restart level prompt tied to the Y button was a terrible mistake. There were several times I was frantically making my way through a level and finally made it to the end, only for my giant clammy hands to slip and hit the Y button, sending me both to the start of the level and into a fit of unbridled rage. I really hope the developers could at least add an option requiring us to hold the button for ruining a run, because as it stands, it's just plain annoying. Gameplay-wise, I had a lot of fun jumping, dashing, and navigating around Velocity Noodle's crazy obstacles in the early levels of the game. Stages are designed to be frantic, challenging, and teach you the game's ins and outs in the same breath. And challenging it is. Its 60 plus levels can often be beaten in 30 seconds or less each, but unless you're a platforming god, it'll be at least a few hours before you get through them. Unfortunately though, the more I saw, the more its seams began to crack. Now, to start with the worst of it, Velocity Noodle has some of the most awful difficulty spikes I've ever seen in a platformer, and never are these more apparent than in its atrocious boss levels. The absolute pixel perfection required to even clear these was maddening, and a very special fuck you goes to the end stage of World 2, an infuriating experience that took 30 to 40 minutes of playtime and at least 60 to 70 tries for me to clear once. In this stage, I was chased by an aggressive, noodle-bigoted delivery drone that no matter how fast I went was up my ass so hard I wished it had the courtesy to at least buy me dinner first. Not only was the stage filled with brutally challenging obstacles, but I fought the controls and design the whole way through. Controls feel tight until an unresponsive jump on a wall or ineffective slide messes you up. Sliding under obstacles feels especially rough. It requires a running start, but is ironically so picky about how fast that start must be, it broke my flow about as often as not. In the case of the aforementioned drone chase abomination, it meant instant death anytime I was even slightly off the mark. The ability to take 2 hits until death helps a bit in some situations, but in others, like saw blades that bounce you across the screen at unpredictable angles when hit, really just spell certain death with extra steps. Unfortunately, it doesn't help that the levels can feel visually busy, resulting in a common pitfall with 2D games where it's hard to tell what's an obstacle and what's just scenery. I would regularly hit into a small mailbox or the like, thinking it was in the background and ruining my run. There's not much story in Velocity Noodle, which only unfolds in short dialogue sequences between our main delivery dasher and a man who is presumably her boss. But the dialogue is light and sometimes pretty funny, though occasionally has some grammatical errors. If you're a big fan of hardcore platformers, have played most of the greats, and want a new challenge to test your mettle, I could see Velocity Noodle resonating enough to be worth a play, but for most, as it stands, the game only gets a recommendation on the upper side of middling for me. There were plenty of times that I had great fun, and plenty of others I spent shouting at the screen because of unrefined controls, iffy design, and bosses in need of a restraining order. If you can handle that, be my guest, but might want to wait for a sale.
Thank you so much for supporting clickbait-free independent content here on YouTube. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe to help us bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming, and be sure to check out patreon.com/IDreamOfIndieGames, where we can together defeat the gaming echo chamber.